Welcome to the Northeast Kingdom Voice. I'm your host, Scott Wheeler. Today's guests are two very long-serving business people. Newport. Welcome to the Northeast Kingdom Voice. I'm your host, Scott Wheeler. Today's guests are Marvin and Carol Needleman. They have been living and working in Newport almost since the beginning of time. They're here to talk about Newport of the past, Newport of today, and what they envision for the Newport of tomorrow. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm glad to be here.
How many years has your business been on Needlemans, been on Main Street? Or do you know that better?
You want me to do the history?
He did
Carol?
that, yes, definitely.
Okay. Carol came into the picture. The best part of me came into the picture
Nice.
a few years after the business started. But actually, my dad started in Newport with his brother, LJ, which was American Clothing.
Right.
And that started on Main Street in 1925. And they carried everything for everybody, men's, women's, half sizes, shoes, boots. And it basically was the big clothing store in Orleans County. And it was kind of funny. My dad was the youngest of 9 children. LJ, Louis, was the oldest. Mm-hmm. And LJ was a traveling salesman. And he used to pack his old station wagon with the goods that, like, the farms could use, overalls and boots and things like that. And he would travel from one farm to the other, selling his goods to the people. He had everything in his station wagon. And finally, he on his trips discovered Newport. And he fell in love with it, with the gorgeous lake and just a beautiful area, because he was a New York boy, and this was gorgeous. So he got on the phone to New York, where they were born, and my dad worked as a longshoreman on the docks of New York. And he was the baby of the family, so Louis called him and said, "How would you like to come to Vermont? And we'll go in business together, because this area is gorgeous."
Right.
So my dad decided to come up, and they started in 1925. And
That was American.
that was the American Clothing
Yeah, I
store.
have some photos of that.
Yeah, and so about 10, 11 years went by. My dad married a gal from Turtle Creek, Pennsylvania,
Martha.
a farm girl. That's Martha. And in fact, Martha used to milk 42 cows every morning before she went to work. Went to school. She used to walk 4 miles. And in 1936, they decided that they wanted to go on their own. So they opened a dress store in 1936 called Ed Needlemans.
Okay, where was American Clothing Company first? Where is it compared to today?
It was next to Montgomery Ward's,
Oh.
which is now the Whole Foods and that building. It was right next. There was American Clothing, Gladstone's, American Clothing, and what was the? They used to buy wagons.
Western
Auto
was in there.
So that was the.
That's that upper section of Main Street.
Right. So where was Ed Needleman's?
Okay, Ed Needlemans was at the bottom near the bottom of Main Street. We had Burns Theater.
Right.
We had a big Woolworths, which was probably the big 5 and 10. And next to there was a little store called Ed Needlemans.
Ed Needleman's.
And at that time was a dress shop. And it was on the corner of Lane Avenue, which went down around and back.
Right.
Saco Auto Parts was down and back. And it was a very small store, but it was a great location, because when the customers came to town, they would stop on the corner of Lane Avenue, let the ladies out to shop, and they'd go park the car in the lot by the lake.
Also, the railroad station
Right.
We actually had a. It's too bad. That's sad because it would have been nice to have the original railroad station.
Right.
still
That
up.
would have been.
I first came to Newport on the Budliner.
Right.
You could get a train in Boston. It would take you all the way up, and I'd get off, and I got off in Newport. That was how I got here. The first summer I was here was in 1963 when we were first going together. And
you're probably your mother was a farm girl, right?
My mother was a farm girl.
I was a city girl.
I was gonna say you're not a farm girl.
I was like shell shocked. First of all, I was 19, and this is true. You were talking about the Jewish people in Newport. I grew up in Brookline, Massachusetts, which was one of the. We were. I thought we were a majority. I never knew we were a minority in this country, and I grew up on. I went to college on the streetcar. You know, I mean, I was a Boston girl. Went to BU. Went to Brookline High School, which at that time was rated one of the #1 high schools in the country, not just in the state. And when I love will send you anywhere, you know. And when I came here, it was a completely different way of living. And like years later, someone said to me, how did you adjust? Because at that time they were trying to get doctors to come here from the city and things, and a lot of times it was the wives that didn't adjust. And I said, it's very simple. Wherever you live, you have to make the best of what's available here. We have wonderful things available in Newport area, and we still do. We have a beautiful lake. Take advantage of it. We have cross-country skiing, which costs nothing but the skis. We have downhill skiing. We have hunting. We have curling. You know, they would say, what did you do? I said, are you kidding me? I didn't have enough time in the day. I worked, but on my days off, I was either skiing or biking or something. So if you can, you adjust to the area.
No, that's it.
And I'll tell you, I had more fun here in the early days. When I married my husband, we used to go to the Elks Club. It was like once a month. That was our big social event. We got dressed up in long dresses. Our friends, we brought. I mean, it was bring your own, of course, but you couldn't. Am I right? It was like, oh, we're going to once a month. I mean, we did more things. Eastern Star, the Masons, the Knights of Columbus, Rotary, the Elks. These were all very active groups.
But your generation, you did a lot more, like you were talking about the Elks. I think you folks did a lot more dancing.
Oh, yes.
Because there were dance halls everywhere.
Yeah.
And now I've never been a dancer.
Where can you go?
And that's it, but you had, like, I grew up, my parents went square dancing.
Yeah, and the red, what was it called?
The Red Wing.
I used to call it the Red Rooster because I couldn't remember
the Red Wing.
Yeah, the Red Wing is where the Elks.
Sure.
The Elks is now, but you did have. I know I believe you're too young though to remember the International Club.
I remember it. It was off
of Sias Avenue.
Sias Avenue, up high.
Right.
And almost near where Sal Sacco lived, up in Blanchard Avenue and up there.
He's not that young.
No, actually, my 76 years, I remember a few things.
People say to us, I said, do you realize I did more here, and my family, here in Newport, than any of my family did anywhere else? We were exposed to so much here that we could do that didn't cost anything either.
Well, I think that's important. You said something just, Billy, you were exposed to things.
Yeah.
And because everybody thinks that if you live here, you're exposed to nothing. I think the secret is no matter where you live.
You take, yes,
you
no
learn,
matter where.
Yeah, but also learn about that there's other places too. Like you learned, like there's we're not the only sheltered ones. You can grow up in a city and still be
more
sheltered.
I know people that grew up in apartment buildings and didn't know their neighbors.
Right. Yeah.
You know, but that's how it is. And this is a different lifestyle, and we're lucky that we still have it. I'll tell you now, the heart of a small town is its main street. And when your main street dies, your town dies. Your local main street is the most important part of your town. And that's where people used to, and for Newport in the, I'm talking early 60s. I'm talking 64, 65. The Newport Hotel.
Yeah.
We went there every Friday night, $1.99 for a lobster.
And that's where People's Bank is today.
Yeah, wait,
Yeah.
the East Side, well, now it's
Yeah,
the
that's
landing, but the
was-
old East Side was known for, they had the barbecue chickens out in the, I mean, we had so much here. People, when someone says, what do you mean? I said, are you kidding me? We had a Montgomery Wards, we had a Woolworths, we had a Grants, and we had a Fishman's. These are all chains on Main Street.
Newberry's,
We
you
had a,
mentioned
wait,
Newberry's.
Newberry's. We had a millinery shop. You know, a hat store.
shop.
We had a hotel on the top of the one block, which is now the.
That Faber Hotel
Right.
was up on top.
Okay.
I mean, how many shoe stores? Just
Oh,
this
you
is
had
right on Main Street.
You had Arkin Shoe Store.
Gladstone's.
Which flood spot.
Yeah,
And
then you
Endicott Johnson. at one
Endicott
point.
Johnson's,
Johnson.
and you had Gladstone's, and we sold shoes, and I think did American Clothing sell shoes?
Yeah, they did too.
I
yeah.
mean, this was all on our little Main Street. We had, so we had all these chains, and we had how many? We had a lot of small jewelers, Bonds,
Size
Searles, Myers, but it wasn't
Myers
called
Jewelry.
Myers. I
Yeah.
can't remember what it was called.
Bonds.
Oh, it was
Bonds.
called Bonds,
Bonds.
right? And I'm saying it was a very at that time, Pick and Shovel used to be a grocery store
It
at one
was
time
Grand Union.
on Main Street. Fideli's was on Main Street. Grand Union was on Coventry, but Main Street was really the heart of this town, and you couldn't walk on the streets on Friday and Saturday nights. I mean, that would be the big shopping night.
Now,
Actually,
was
Scott-
Coventry Street a?
Essentially.
Yeah, that was a main. That was
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I
You
have
had
photos.
Iola's, not the TV store.
Rod Marcotte had a
Marcotte
TV shop underneath that block.
That was built. Wasn't that the hotel block, all hotel?
Well, Newport Hotel was the big thing, and then there was
And the
Goodrich.
pit underneath.
The Grays had a tire store that was next to the
Right,
hotel.
and it also served as a parking garage.
Yes, exactly.
And,
the
'cause
buses used to park.
Yeah, because in they actually allowed other people to park there.
Exactly.
Like one of their ancestor descendants actually contacts me every once in a while because he
Oh.
talks about his relatives' parking
Sure.
garage. Because everybody says we need a parking garage in Newport. Well, we had
had
parking.
one.
We had one. Okay. Here's a first photo of Newport. You must recognize that view from.
yeah.
Oh,
what,
that's
19
the hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the bottom of Main Street.
That's
Yeah.
too bad. Again, that's where People's Bank is now.
Yeah.
You know, it's
That
easy.
was so nice,
It's
though.
easy to second guess. Tearing it down, but it just seems like it'd be really nice to have kept it.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
You know, probably.
They had underneath. You used to go and get your magazines. Do you remember that?
No, no.
See, that underneath the
It also
on
had
the
a
hotel.
had a bar called the Snake
Snake
the
Pit.
snake pit.
Yeah,
Underneath.
yeah. As I recently wrote an article
Article
about
on
the
the
Snake
Snake
Pit
Pit.
with Freddie Carter,
Freddie.
who's still ticking at 94, and he worked there as a bartender. As he said, well, everybody else was at war. He only was like 4'11" and less than 100 pounds, so they wouldn't take
They
him.
wouldn't
So
take
he
him,
was
yeah.
down here slinging
Oh,
beers
sure.
at the Snake
Yeah.
Pit.
Oh, gosh, yes.
War would have been over a lot sooner if they let him go.
Yeah, that's probably true. But
Whoop whoop. That'd have been it.
the cinema is on the right hand side.
Wait, Burns is across the street on that picture. The Burns Cinema, see,
Right.
is right in the front on the
Right.
right
Yeah.
side.
Well, what you were talking about, Scott, see is that Goodyear?
Goodyear, yeah.
The Goodyear sign
Yeah.
was the Gray's, was a tire shop, but as you said, it also
And that's where
stored
the bus
cars.
came in.
And,
Right.
and the buses used to be
And
stored.
Dairy Queen. Wait,
Oh,
the Dairy
sure,
Queen
Dairy
was
Joy.
right.
Yeah,
Everyone
Dairy
forgets
Joy.
that, the
Yeah.
Dairy Joy.
I remember, that's one of my earliest memories,
Yeah.
the Dairy Joy
Sure.
that used to
Yeah,
be there.
right.
Sure,
Yeah.
right on that corner, yeah.
But you know the funny thing is, I'm old enough to remember the Newport House. I don't remember it. I don't know. I've
well,
blanked.
it came and
Yeah, but I just.
I had
just-
my wedding reception dinner there.
There, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so
Can
you
you
guys met
imagine?
in college,
Yeah.
and what college was that?
He was at UVM and I was at BU.
I graduated UVM in 63,
Right.
1963. And then I went to the big city to find my bride.
Hi. Bride for
Do
sale.
you, so, looking back at all these years in Newport, would you have come back with him, or would you have been saying you're coming
That's
back?
a loaded question.
No. This is true story, by the way. Marvin and I met, and of course it was a different time then. We weren't, you didn't live together. My mother used to say the next apartment you'll have is with your husband. Girls
Yeah.
didn't go into apartments. It was a different time. It was still, we still had the remnants of the 50s. We hadn't
Right.
gone yet to the Flower Children.
Right.
And my husband and I we were going together. He had a very good education, and he was planning on going to law school, and we sat together, and I was madly in love, and I said, why don't you have a family? And I happened to go through college. I worked for retail.
Right.
I worked for a company called Terrains. It was, and that's where I worked from the time I was 15 there. And I said, your parents have a nice business. Why don't we see what we could do? You go into your family's business. You want to stay in Newport. And so we thought we would do that for a year till we got to know each other.
Actually, Scott, there's a little funny note attached to this because, you had asked about Jewish families.
Right.
And as the years went on, they either left the area or passed on.
Right.
Some of the Jewish families was Saul Sacco had the automobile, auto parts business.
Their children
And
moved
the Arkins had Arkins shoe store. Jess Levin and Esther Levin had the fashion shop, which was a dress store on Main Street, actually where Newberry's was.
Right.
There was Dean Wheeler. I don't know if
Oh,
you
yeah, I
remember
know
Dean. Dean Wheeler ran his drugstore there,
Right.
and next to the drugstore was the fashion shop, which ironically was my mother's best friend, and they were competitors. They both sold dresses, yet they were still the best friend. My dad and Jesse Levin weren't the best friends,
with the women.
but anyway, just
and Arkin, wasn't he a tailor? Mr. Arkin? Was he the shoemaker or the tailor?
No,
Wait,
you were thinking.
he had a cigarette. No,
I
I can't think of his name now.
Yeah, but you're going to get me off because I had a cute anecdote of leading up to how we met. And as I started saying, the Jewish families became less and less. There was very few families left. The one thing in my mother's heart was for me to meet a Jewish girl. Well, I'm not going to meet a Jewish girl in Newport. There just wasn't one. And she used to set me up with various trips to St. Johnsbury because there was a Jewish girl in St. Johnsbury. And so, but this is leading up to this story with Carol. And I had a very good friend, Jimmy Hazelton. And I don't know if the name Hazelton means too much now. But actually, the McKennies, Ron McKenney, married Hazelton, Sandy Hazelton. So Jimmy was one of my good friends that we used to go to the Del Bar and other places. And he was dating a Jewish girl in Boston.
Hello.
And we were up there one night. We were up there having a Labatt's, and he said, Marv,
Well, we weren't dating. We were just You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We hung around.
It's,
You
but
know, in those days
I
it
know
was
this
hang
Jewish girl.
around.
I've taken her out 1 or 2 times. I said, give me your name. So, well, you know, and then like once a month, the kids from UVM and my friends, we'd go to Boston, the big city, and we'd have parties. And we used to hang out at this
Crosswinds.
local coffee shop type thing.
Coffee shop. It was a bar. Crossroads.
Anyway.
Crossroads. That's
Anyway.
what it's called.
One
Chicky
of these
Kennedy. You remember Chicky?
One of these weekends, we went to Boston. I had Carol's name in my pocket, but I went down a good friend of mine with his dog.
Well,
And,
they might know your good friend,
well, it was
Gallup.
Larry Gallup,
Okay.
and Larry had his dog with him, and we went, and we were staying in an apartment on Commonwealth Avenue, and lo and behold, somebody left the door open, and the dog got loose in downtown Boston. Well, I spent 8 hours walking the streets with Larry looking for the dog. Finally, about 7 that night, I said, Larry, I've had it. I mean, we'll look tomorrow. And then I said, you know, I've got this girl's name. And I said, I'm going to call her up. So I called her up. And she said, yeah, come over.
I'll fix you up with my girlfriend. Because I don't go out on blind dates.
Right.
Yeah, so you can pull the rest of the little anecdote story.
No,
quickly.
I fixed him up with a girlfriend. Now, my girlfriend, I used to say, don't hang around too pretty a girl. You want to be the prettiest in the room. Well, my girlfriend was not that. She was a wonderful person. But
Can I interject?
Go ahead.
She weighed about 250, had a mustache, and played middle linebacker for the Patriots. That's who she fixed me up with.
And when he came up the stairs, I took one look at him. I just, my God, what am I? And we just started visiting. You know, in those days we had a back, you know, a den.
Right.
You know, and this was and her, she poor thing was there, and Marvin and I we started to connect socially. You know what I mean, visiting and everything. And we didn't go out, and he obviously didn't take her out. But when he left the house, now remember, I was 18. I looked at my girlfriend and I said, you see that guy? He's the guy I'm going to marry. And a year later, we were married.
Then you moved up here almost immediately?
I went from my mother's house in the city to my mother-in-law's house in the country. The
Well,
city mouse went
You know,
to become
I graduated, that
country
year,
mouse.
I graduated from UVM, and Carol was going to be a junior at BU, Boston U. And we decided to get married 53 years ago.
And you had 3 kids.
3 children,
Three children,
wonderful children.
and 8 even more wonderful
For
grandchildren.
3 wonderful in-law children. I had Sharon's my oldest. She stayed here in Newport with her mother and father. And Amy, my middle one, Sharon's married to Mark Stewart, who was also born in this area. So that's nice. We kept at least one whole family in this area. And they gave back to the community. That was the good thing. Then my middle daughter, Amy, happened to go to school in Massachusetts. She went to Smith, and she ended up marrying and working in Framingham, Mass. I think you remember Amy, don't
Oh,
you?
yeah, sure. And Sharon.
And Sharon,
And
yeah.
Sharon.
And then
And
I
actually
had
Mark, too.
and Mark too. His roots are still in Vermont, and he's in St. Albans doing the same thing we did 53.
Does he own the business now?
He owns it completely. We are fully retired.
Right. So, when did you get out of the clothing business?
When we got out of
Yeah.
our okay, this is actually, we had no plans at all. I figured I was going to be like my dad,
Worked
and
till
my
we
dad
died.
worked right till he passed away right in the store, and that was what I thought our lifestyle would be. And
You
in
know,
2007, Carol was diagnosed with lung cancer.
And when I woke up in the recovery room, and he looked down at me, and the tears I saw, and he said it was malignant. And I looked up at him and said, "Hello, I'm retired. I'm never working another day in our
And when
life."
was this?
This was
2007.
2007. Marvin looked down at me and he says, "You know something? I'm retired too." So not always is cancer a death sentence.
not anymore.
Sometimes it's a life sentence. It gives you a time to say, "Wait a second."
Oh,
I
sure.
say, I've never seen a car full of money fall in a casket to the grave.
How many years have you had cancer? Because you've also
From when
been-
do you want to go back
Yeah,
to?
'cause
I
you've
mean, I've
had
had a
breast
lot
cancer,
of uterine cancer
well-
and the lung cancer, and I had melanoma in my thigh, and
You got bladder cancer also. Carol's a 4-time survivor.
And I heard when you got cancer,
Yeah.
you basically said, "What's the big deal?"
what's the big deal? Let's get on with it. That's right. And he's the best patient you could possibly want, because number one, and I'll tell everybody, the number one battle, the number one cure for cancer is early detection. That's number one. You have to have early detection. And also your attitude. Now when he had prostate cancer, you're supposed to do certain exercises before and after constantly. And he had a 9, a grade, which is a very high grade. And we have a very dear friend in the medical business. I don't know if you've ever met Dr. Custer, Dr. Keith Custer. He's a summer resident here, and we've been friends for over 50 years. I
Yeah.
think the year I got married. But anytime we thought something might be wrong, we called, and he got us to the right person.
Right.
And that's how we were lucky. In Florida, there is a doctor in Miami that in Florida isn't known for good medicine, but they happen to have one of the best, prostate cancer doctors in the country with robotics and things. So, we don't wait. You go, you take care of things, you do what the doctor tells you, and you come back with a good attitude. You will have. It's it's how you look at a glass. Are you half empty or half full? I always felt I was half full. Oh, good, I got to stop now and really smell the roses, because I might not have tomorrow to smell the roses.
That's true.
And I think that's something, unfortunately, a lot of us learn through a tragic medical experience. But it's something we should learn from the time we're born. We have, yesterday was our memories. Today is how we're going to live, and tomorrow isn't promised to you. So you're here today. Today's you live your day and enjoy it. You don't waste time on negative thoughts.
A lot of people do. They waste their time or saying, "What if? What if? What
Yeah.
if?"
Carol mentioned, and it is so true, early detection. It is so important. Especially, I see it with men. And a man, I'm that way, you're that way, Scott. We don't like to go to doctors.
Women make us most of the time.
Women make us go.
Good 55th birthday present.
Yeah,
Colonoscopy.
go.
I had mine
and,
50.
Yeah, yeah.
Unfortunately, you had to be pushed to do it.
But it's women, you're right, that push us. And men hate to go. But what my story is to all the young guys out there. Now, I'm talking young guys. I'm talking 50 years,
40.
in the high 40s, 50. When we're at the prime of our life, we
Right.
feel strong. Nothing wrong with me. That's the time to have your checkups. Because, thank God, I had my checkup. They found the tumor with the PSA test. And I'm telling all these guys who are 50 and 55, have this done, have a
baseline.
a baseline so the
Baseline.
doctors know what to look at. And family history is another thing. If Dad had prostate cancer,
Yeah.
that's very important. My case was a little different. Usually, I was 75 when they detected mine. And usually a guy old as me, they don't do anything with it.
Right.
They say something else
we'll
is going
kill
to
you.
get you.
Yeah.
So leave your prostate alone. But in my case, I was fortunate enough to be well with no other side issues.
Right.
So they said, Marvin, we can do this. If you don't touch that cancer, you could live 7 years. Am I right, Carol? That's what they told me. And I said, what's the other option? He says, your other option is to have a biopsy and take care of it right away. Because he said, your particular cancer, even though you're 75, is very aggressive. So, right away. And that's what Carol and I's story is with cancer. The minute we know with early detection, we take care of it right away. And my God, look at her.
Yep,
You know?
that's it.
It was a very interesting thing my granddaughter from St. Albans went to last week. It was a seminar on public health. And unfortunately, there is a difference in the health of the middle or upper middle class and the poor. And that's because we don't have a system to get everybody with a baseline, with proper nutrition, with dental.
Right.
And a lot of that has to do with the circumstances of how you live. And in a lot of people, that's the last thing they're going to go to is a dentist or a doctor for their, well, why do I need a doctor? But this is one of the biggest problems in public health, is to keep our less fortunate people healthy so they can become fortunate.
I think the problem lies is some people also don't understand the importance of preventative health care, including some very well-off people.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, I know people that have never been for a mammogram,
sure.
and they're my age,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
look at them and say, okay, Russian roulette?
Oh yeah, that's it. Okay, back to the city of Newport. We're going to be celebrating 100 years as a city because it became a city in 1918.
Yeah.
It was Newport before, but for the listeners, Main Street, East Main Street, at one time was Main Street, West Derby.
Yeah.
And so it was a separate community, and so then these two communities came together and formed the city of Newport, which a lot of people don't realize that it's the only official city in the Northeast Kingdom. People say, well, what about St. Johnsbury? No, it's set up as a town. I can't tell you the politics of how that works, but but you look back, you extend way back into the history of this community.
Had I known that, why didn't we make our Main Street all the way on East Main Street and keep our lake frontage? Had we known that in 1918?
Well, and sometimes, like with the Waterfront Plaza, when they built it, it actually made sense at the time because it was, it was a railroad yard that was no longer used. Now you look at it and think, probably shouldn't have been that.
But, Scott, I remember, we used to have...
You talk a subject with
We
me,
used to
not-
have, yeah, it's a sore subject with me. We used to have, once a week, a merchants meeting with all the fellow merchants in town, the Newberries, the Montgomery wards.
Right.
We would all go to Newberry's, have a coffee, and talk about business downtown, what promotions we're going to do.
Right.
And then I'm going to lead you into this waterfront plaza business. And this would have been a perfect setup because our beauty is our lake. And when you put up a tin metal building to block our prettiest part of Newport, because when you come in from the interstate,
Yeah.
That's what you see.
So anyway, we went to the city council and we said, please, this is not a good idea to put another commercial building. And what really riled me more than anything else was they allowed tax stabilization on that building. They gave them 5 years at little or no taxes and put up an eyesore. And then you feel it doesn't matter what we say, they're not going to listen. So I've had my talks with the city council.
That should have
many
been.
times.
Look how beautiful the landing is, for example. You sit in the landing on the deck there, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, the
There's
landing, which is now
I'm
the
just
east
saying,
side.
East
East Side Restaurant. Now, what do you have there? Buildings?
Right.
You know, just what we needed. 10 buildings.
And that has gone through so many reincarnations.
Yeah.
Like when I and your kids were growing
Forest
up,
Hills.
there was Forest Hills, but then there was roller skating rink.
Yeah, and we had
it's-
jeans all in
Yeah,
there. We had
and it's and you know what I still don't think it looks. I know they've been trying to renovate it, but it's still.
not the
It's
same.
still
It's-
10 buildings.
it's
I don't
still-
care what anyone says,
Yeah.
blocking the lake.
But because do you remember? Yeah, you remember it was an active railroad yard there, right?
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
I remember fishing off the bridge with the old steam locomotives coming
Was
through,
beautiful,
going to Sherbrooke,
actually.
and taking the Pullman out of Newport to go to Boston with my dad.
The Budliner, right?
No, before
You
the
had a
Budliner.
They did have a Pullman.
Before the
come.
Budliner,
The Budliner was
they had the
something I remember.
Pullman, the sleepers,
Right.
and Dad and I was like 10 years old, would take the Pullman to Boston, get off, go shopping on Lincoln Street in Boston, where the shoe district was. And my dad used to pick out shoes for different people. You talk about the Carters with little people with little feet. My dad used to go in the back and buy size 4 samples
So
for all these little feet customers. But though that's
It
I
was a
remember
different
this-
time. It
I
was a
remember the
wonderful
steam
time.
locomotives coming through.
it was a time when people came to town on like I said, on Friday nights you couldn't walk the streets.
Well, here's another photo. Then it might
Yeah.
show something like that. And is that what a Friday night may have
Friday
looked like?
night looked. It was like
More like this.
it looked like this right
with,
here.
with people.
People were on this. First of all, Montgomery Wards.
Right.
Now we're not. Are we looking at the Montgomery Wards
Yeah,
Yes.
building
we're on the
now?
left,
On the
on the left.
On the left. That's the top of Main Street. Montgomery Wards sent a flyer out every week,
Right.
and they
They drew more
they
people.
drew people like crazy, and it was the best thing that happened to us because we were brought people in. If you're going to go to one store, you go to every store.
Right.
And it just brought people on to the main street, and there were it was just a friendly, nice. I loved it. And, the $1.99 lobsters, and then wait a second. How about the white beer and Frank's restaurant?
Oh,
You
sure.
know, and the sugar, the rolls with the pecans and the caramel. Oh gosh, we loved it. What was her name? She used to make beautiful dinners in her home for people.
Oh God, you're testing.
Oh, I can't remember. But you had Gertrude Aslan playing music every week for the Rotary Club. My father-in-law, no matter what was going on, come Rotary, everything stopped, and he left for his Rotary meeting.
Oh yeah.
And they did another thing too that I've noticed in the years. Things change. People don't have to belong to the Eastern Star. They don't.
Right.
They don't do the things that our
used to do.
our generation did, and we did a lot for the community. I mean, we held benefits. It wasn't just us. We had a women's business group. We had so many different. They don't have clubs now. Even I'm an old golfer. I didn't start until I was an old lady, but I still liked it.
Right.
And we had a tremendous amount of women playing in league. Now, we're too old. None of the young ones want to do those things. They're not used to doing club type activities.
Right.
They're very active with their machine.
Well, I think the problem though lies in a lot of clubs, and I happen to think that I don't belong to the Rotary, but I still think the Rotary does a lot of good. But there's other groups. I hate to say it, is there more like time to sit around and gossip and gripe. And
well,
in a
I
lot-
don't. That wasn't what it was.
Yeah,
though,
but now,
when we
but that's
were.
what it is.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't even know if Newport has a chamber anymore. But fortunately, they have the Rotary, and the Northeast Kingdom is blessed with the Northeast Kingdom Chamber, which
That's the thing. Yeah.
and
We used to have. I don't know. I'm sure there's many of you out there that will remember this. on the Eastern Star Masonic building that we had on 2nd Street,
Right.
we would have a Hands Across the Border night where our Canadian sisters and brothers came. And we make you couldn't hold the amount of people we had coming in for Hands Across the Border. Hello, what happened? We couldn't, fewer people joined.
Right.
They couldn't afford that beautiful, beautiful building. The Masonic Temple on 2nd Street was absolutely a gorgeous building. And then again, the young people had other things to do. You know, in the early 60s, we didn't have as much entertainment available to us we went and made we had bowling. They still have bowling leagues.
Yeah, they even had a bowling. They even had bowling on Main Street.
Yeah, we had bowling on Main Street.
Down in the.
It was wonderful.
Right.
Okay, we only have about 15 minutes left. Is I think you both mentioned the train, the Budliner.
Budliner.
The Budliner came after the steam.
Yeah, and that did you travel on that?
That's how I used to come here to visit. We had choices then. Wait a second.
Yeah.
You could get here on the Greyhound bus from Boston to Newport.
Right.
It stopped in White River. It stopped in St. Johnsbury. You could get here from Boston by plane.
Northeast.
It stopped in Montpelier and then came to Newport. And then you could take the Budliner. My preference was always the Budliner because I could take my books and whatever and study. I once flew, when I had my girls, they were very young, I went to visit my parents, and my husband brought me down, but I flew back. I thought I was going to die on the flight. The kids were okay, but I was holding a bag. And I am telling you, that plane went right through I wanted to get off in Montpelier and have them drive because I didn't want the plane to get up on the plane again.
One of the DC-3s, the Northeast.
We have a lot of wonderful memories of Newport. But I'm going to tell you something that when you lose your Main Street, where do you go when you have to have an ad for the yearbooks?
Right.
Where do you go when you need donations for your band?
Oh, I know.
Where do you go? Main Street was a wonderful supporter because we were local. We weren't answering to any big office anywhere. We owned our own business. We lived in this town. We wanted to help the people in this town. Gave us a good living. Right. We wanted to give back.
But you also probably understood. You also had to cater to the shoppers, as in,
personal service.
Yeah, or like some businesses, whether it's Newport or anywhere, you can't open at say 9 and close at 4 when everybody is working. Okay, and the one thing is Newport, even though the Newport I grew up in was poor by the time I was, it had a lot of spirit. And here's a photo of the bed races of the 1980s. And there was a lot, and it seems like there was more community
going
spirit,
on. Well,
and I think more people were spending time doing than talking, because there's a lot of people who sit around and talk and gripe.
Oh yeah, and
and
gripe
just
for things they don't
but
do.
what we did with these merchants meetings was to have promotions like the
How
bed
about
races.
when we first had the first swim? The first international.
Oh yeah, I
swim.
remember those.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? You couldn't get on Main Street. We had so much going on Main Street for the swim. We had David and Silver and Edna.
Yeah.
They would have a Mexican stand. I mean, we all had different things going on. We loved it. We had the skate. We had 2 men from Holland stay with us when they had the international
skating.
We had wonderful things.
You remember that, Scott?
Oh yeah, sure.
I
do.
just think people are complacent now. They just rather go in front of their internet and go on Facebook. God forbid God forbid they don't have their cell phone ticking away while you're having dinner with them. But we're old. We don't know how to use that equipment.
But
So
on
we're
the other
still
hand,
old-fashioned.
I think some people, like there's groups now, as in like little, just I'm not sure what you'd call them. Their full-time jobs just seems to be complaining, and they think it's doing. There's a difference of complaining and doing.
That's it.
And fortunately, we have some very good business people here. We have Dina Gray.
Oh, she
then
works like
then I know Greg and Tina Bliss have pretty much shifted to Florida. But so we have actually a lot. You know, even though the groups seem to be dying off, other than the Rotary, I think we're doing some things.
Well, I would like to see more myself. I would like to see on Main Street different, smaller, more interesting shops, because let's face it, we have made this society in the last 53 years. We have really a two-class system.
Yeah.
No matter what anyone says, they're the haves and the have-not throughout the country. We've done something terrible to our middle or lower middle class, and I would like to see on Main Street little shops that maybe are more artesian, because people aren't going to come unless it's different. They go. Other than that, they can go on the internet and buy it from China, or they can go to Walmart, or they can go. But you have to offer them something that they appreciate and they like, and they get service, and they can come and visit. I'd like to see a lot more made in USA shops too.
Because you guys, the two of you, had to make changes to your business.
From the time we started, we were changing and recreating our image. When we started, we were just a ladies' shop. We always had bridal, but we were just a ladies' shop. Then we we enlarged the store and went where the old Cinderella shop was, which was the Bell Shops before that, which was a national chain. We moved to that location, and when we moved there, we expanded. We brought in sportswear, tuxedos. Yeah. We brought in. We made it bigger, but it was still mainly a ladies' clothing store, and our bridal started to get more attention, and we brought in tuxedos.
Carol, can I interject one thing? And it's one thing that I talked to Scott about, because what we care now, you know, our past is our past, but we still love Newport. It's our home, and there's tremendous hope for Main Street. And the secret is you gotta change with the times. And Carol was bringing out, we were a ladies' store, and then we went to men's. We put in,
and then the jean
and
shop.
And then during the Vietnam War years,
jean shop.
We put in a jean shop called Jeans All.
Oh, so you guys owned that? I guess I didn't realize that.
Oh, yeah.
Now, again, it was changing because the type of dress.
Yeah, because weddings were out of style.
When I put men's in 1970, I never put a suit in. I put the leisure suit.
Right.
So we were lucky. That was luck.
So
yeah.
But it's continually changing.
Right.
And now, the minute Walmart starts carrying wedding gowns,
we'll have to change
well,
again.
either we'll have to change or we're, you know.
Or become better. But we offer service.
Right.
And that's what small stores are there for. We're not, you know, this is the thing that hurts small businesses. Number one, and I don't care who it is, you'll all say we don't do it, but you all do. We're brick and mortar. Brick and mortar is a lot more expensive to run. We pay our help a decent, and they get they know they're going to have a job at all times. But we're paying for things and for service for people. You have people that come into a brick and mortar store, and they want the personal service, and they want the expertise of the person waiting on them, no matter what it is, a television, a dishwasher, a wedding gown, a pair of shoes. They want the expertise. Then they want the person to measure them. And then they say, well, I think I'll look on the internet to see if I can find it. And people don't realize that, you know, that storekeeper is paying a person to be in their shop, whether there's a customer or not. They're getting paid. Doesn't matter if they don't see a customer all day, they're getting paid. But when you start using brick and mortar, and then actually ordering your stuff on the internet, you're not saving money, which people think they're not. When you start figuring in, for example, we'll figure in clothing, any kind of clothing, I don't care where it is. I know people that have ordered tops, okay? This is an example. Ordered a top on the internet. She wears an extra large when she wears her tops, but she's not a very large girl, but that's what her size is. She went on the internet and ordered 2 tops, got them mailed to her. Put it this way, they fit me, okay? She couldn't return them. It cost her if she returned them, it would cost her $23 to mail them back to China. People don't read the small print.
No, that is it.
And also, well, this isn't what I saw in the store. That's not what I saw, and I went on the internet, it looked the same thing as I saw in the store. Well, honey, it's not the same thing, because you're not buying it. The store that you saw your dress or your shirt, or you physically tried it on, that's what you're getting. But when you order on the internet, you're getting usually a very cheaply made copy, and you don't find it out till you get it. I can't tell you how many times at prom time or at wedding time, in the last years that I worked, now it's probably worse, that they have to come in a week before the event because they never got the delivery, or when they got delivery, it wasn't anything they wanted. I know someone that got the delivery and it wasn't put together. They had to sew it together themselves. They didn't know.
So with us getting ready to wrap up here,
Yeah.
I can't let you go without asking you this question. What should be done with the hole in the ground
hole?
on Main Street?
Right now, I'd fill it in and take it. I don't know who owns the hole, but I can tell you this: if I was the town, I would take possession of the hole, because it's dangerous, number one, and it's an eyesore. Number one, before anyone wants to put any money in it, at least fill it in and take those wire things and clean it up and make it at least a nice area.
You know what?
And then hopefully
I was thinking, right now is the first step. I'm thinking of St. Albans Main Street, because that's where I put my store. Well, right across my bridal shop was a beautiful park.
Right.
with
Now,
historical.
Temporary, if you want it temporary, fill that in, put trees, flowers,
Whatever.
whatever, but a beautiful park.
Because
That's
right
not a
now,
nice one.
I personally think the fence looks,
Like a jail.
well, it looks hideous.
Hideous.
But some people look at it as at least there's potential there now.
We do have.
There's a lot of
We
potential.
do have.
And I just hope.
Another thing you could do to this town that would really make it hot
What's that?
is turn it into an outlet town, like they do in Manchester. You don't need to build a mall. It's a perfect type of a town to have an outlet, big, one that runs these. I can't think of the name of the company, to set it up on Main Street. And people that are there. They'll be better because they'll have a draw. They'll draw people in. So if they could that was always my vision of Main Street, is to see, good outlet stores along with our own stores, because they don't offer the same. People don't realize it's a different type of, but it would what we need is to attract people to Main Street, to shop, to walk, to visit, to go to the restaurants. That's what makes the town lively.
And I do think Newport's Main Street has a very, I look at it, other than the hole and some storefronts, I think Newport, there's actually some beautiful, if you look at parts of Main Street, and as I tell people, I've said it ad nauseum, we are so fortunate in rural America to have Thai food like they offer. I just think their Thai food is second to none. But we do have a number of eateries down here.
We have.
On Main Street. I call it the tourist run when I have my friends from.
Yeah.
How about the Haskell Opera House?
Yeah,
I
that's
hate
true.
to tell you how many people from big cities that come to visit me, and I have to take me. My grandson,
Right.
he couldn't get over the Haskell Opera House with the lines and the paintings
sure.
and the ceilings. And I mean, where do you find that in small town America?
But that's right, is because a lot of times we look past what we already have. It's like, for example, periodically I have the State Department give me a call. The State Department calls me up when they have foreign reporters come into an area. So they have some coming in October. So they want me to meet with them. They're one of the former Russian republics.
Yeah.
And I've spent times with the Koreans, and these communist or former communist countries or military countries. They're like, wow, these flower pots.
Yeah, awesome.
And they're amazed
Beautiful.
that the flower pots prevent. No, but at the border, they said, like the South Koreans told me, if you stood this close to the North Korean
They'd
border,
blow you away.
Yeah. And then they said, all you guys have are flower pots.
Yeah.
And so some of these countries who come here, they're like totally astonished about life on the border.
yeah.
Sure.
Things that we take for
for
we
granted.
take for granted
Sure.
sugar, maple syrup, in it having the sugar parties.
Yeah, oh,
And
yeah.
My father would come from. They were sick, but they would come. They would come just for the sugar on snow party that we used to have up at the LeBlanc's farm and sugar house on our road. I mean, there's so much that we have to offer.
Yeah.
And one thing that this town has that we are a loving town. We don't hate our neighbors, hopefully, and we keep peace, and we try to help our neighbors. And I'll tell you, that's the thing that, to me, I mean, I always could find someone to help me. I never felt alone in Newport.
I always tell people about the people of the Northeast Kingdom. We like to play together. We like to work together. We even like to fight together. But the thing is, when the pedal hits the metal or whatever it said, and somebody needs help, there's usually somebody there.
Yeah, to
it's
help.
like I laugh when they talk about the bums on Main Street. You know what? They might not work. They might not do
What you do.
what I do, but I can go right up to them
Talk to 'em.
and talk to them. I think there's a little bit of elitism that runs in the air.
We could solve that problem nationally. It's a very easy problem to solve. Social welfare isn't for free.
Right.
That would be the problem. We take the same amount of money we're giving away,
Yeah.
and we would subsidize income. Because there's some people and there's some jobs that only can pay that much.
Minimum wage.
But they shouldn't live less than somebody that isn't working. This way, if you're working, we give you health care. We give you child care. As long as you're working, we will subsidize your rent. We will help you. But it would cost us less because, I can't find a job. Well, guess what? I have a job for you, and it's right here. And if you don't do it, well, I guess you're going to go hungry.
Because there's plenty of there really are plenty of jobs now. They just don't.
They don't want
But I
believe in free vocational training, free vocational, even like at Vermont Tech. That's a wonderful school.
Sure.
And we have it here in the state. I think anybody that wants to go there should go there.
I'll have to have you back on because
You're right.
I could think of we could talk about the characters of Main Street.
Oh, how
throughout the-
about we had wonderful, but we had wonderful characters. We really don't have that now.
No, well, now, actually, I know some of the characters. We still have them,
We
but
still have them.
we have, but we had Joe. I don't know what is
Yeah.
Sophie.
Joe, Sophie, Ruth, Wayne, Shafe.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
Shafe,
everybody did their role. They did
Sure.
a Karen for them in their own way.
I'm going to tell you, Sophie's story was an amazing woman.
Sophie
People
could
don't-
clothes better, clean clothes.
She picked berries. I mean, people wouldn't do that. She used to pick berries. When the berries were in season, she'd come in. We'd buy them, of course, no matter where. But she was a hard
Working
worker.
lady.
Right, and she could. I heard say that she could make white whiter than any other human could.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm planning on doing a story on her because Harriet Hall is her granddaughter.
Oh.
And so...
That was the first time when I came to Newport. That was my first experience, because in the city we don't know who, we're very, very isolated in areas. And it was the first time I ever heard of an overseer of the poor.
Yeah,
And you want to know something? It worked very well. It cost the city very little, and it worked very well.
Right. Okay, well, we have to wrap up. Just end with a good note on the future of Newport.
Well, number one, this is God's country, and no matter where we go, if we're in Florida, we live in the Northeast Kingdom.
Right.
What is that? It's God's country. It's beautiful country. You may have this, that, but we've got the Northeast Kingdom. As far as our survival, I'd like to see the hole in the ground temporarily filled, planted, make a nice park for the time being. If the opportunity opens up, city will cooperate with a company coming in, we'll do it. But let's get rid of the eyesore. And that's number one. Number two, we will survive.
Yeah.
All the merchants now, Walmart's hurting them a little bit. If they adjust, like we had to adjust for 70 years with different things,
They'll
if
get
they
neater.
adjust, they'll survive and they'll prosper. Because that Walmart will bring in more and more stores and more shoppers.
Right.
So yes, this is God's country, and we love it.
Your final words.
I've been everywhere with my husband, and I grew up in a city. But I'm going to tell you this. I raised 3 wonderful children in the country. They had opportunities that no child in the city would ever have. I mean, the New England Orchestra, for example. My middle daughter went to Europe with them. Sharon with Decca. She was all over the country. Mark he was in London. I mean, this school, this was when my children were young, your age.
Right.
Yeah.
We had so much opportunity to let every child shine. And also, I don't think there is a more beautiful area than northern Vermont. And come foliage, and you look out, and then you know there is a God, because only God could paint the country that color.
And they say this year is supposed to be a banner year.
Well, last year, I don't think
Last
there
year
could have
was
been
beautiful.
anything more beautiful than last year. So anybody out there that's thinking of visiting the Northeast Kingdom, I do recommend the last week in September usually.
The 1st of
And
October.
come and see our foliage and have our apples and taste our maple syrup and have some of our cheese. We have a wonderful way of living here that I think you cannot buy. My father used to have a saying, you can't buy a day like this for $1 million.
That's true.
And that's how I feel. You don't need to, you need to be enjoying what's available to us.
Right.
And we do have a lot of wonderful things
we do.
available.
Okay, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Right. And thank you to the viewers for tuning in to another segment of the Northeast Kingdom Voice.